When I first came to India, it was in the late 1990s, and I saw India through entirely different eyes in those days because I was uninitiated to the ways of India. And it took me several years to adjust to all the colors and hues. And so I guess for most foreigners that come here for the first time, they come with a whole lot of preconceived notions about India. And that's just simply based on whatever information is dished out on the television or through the media, or scattered notations through our school books and so on. And so a lot of people have the perception that India is a very poor country with a lot of poverty, elephants walking down the streets and cows everywhere on the streets and so on. And yeah, sure, I have seen this as well, but India has changed so much in the last 20 years. And the transformation is really quite amazing, especially in areas of the economy and also the infrastructure. So now my eyes, I guess you could say that 20 plus years living in India has taught me a lot of things about humanity. When we talk about India, we're talking about approximately 1 in every 5 human beings on this planet live in India. And so it's a very good sample, a cross-section of how human beings behave. And so putting aside cultural differences, human nature itself is exposed in all its different colors and hues in this country. Some things which I found quite unsettling when I first arrived here, like some experiences in West Bengal, and other things which are really very sweet and beautiful in this country. So it's a land of all the colors and hues. I come from a religious family originally, but from one of what we call the minorities in India, one of the Christian minority. But from a very early age, I questioned the interpretations of my faith, or the faith that I was raised in. And so by the time I was in my teens, I had read very widely on all sorts of religious and philosophical thought. And so by the time I reached my early 20s, I had already given away any attachment to the label of Christian. And so yes, I came from those roots, but I let go of those things as a sentimental attachment. I let those go to embrace a much broader view of the spirituality in human beings, the spiritual reality, which is found in all religions anyway. And when one studies the different schools of philosophical thought, one can realize that there is in fact much more commonality in the world religions than there are differences. She's a Christian. She's one of the minority, and a very good woman. And I very much admired her adherence to her faith and her dedication to her work. And so it was on that basis of admiration for her character that I decided to marry her. And so it's interesting to note that when we talk about minorities in this country, religious minorities, I think according to the Pew Research Center, which has done a lot of research into the divisions of the religions in this country, the most recent was around 2015, I think their last major research was done. According to that research, around 80% of all residents of India, all people in India, are in fact Hindu. There's 79 point something, but let's say 80 rounded off. And according to the same research, around 14% people are of Muslim faith. And the balance 6% comprises everybody else. And that the Christians in this country and the Sikhs in this country represent roughly equal, around 1.2, 1.4% of the population. Another interesting statistic that I learnt in all this was that in terms of the spread of religions around the world, India is unique in the fact that the concentration of Hindus worldwide some 94% of all Hindus in this world actually live in India. And so that concentration of religion, similarly with the Sikhs, I think around 90% of all Sikhs on this planet live in Punjab.
Yeah.
And so these high concentrations of religion is quite unique in India, whereas if you have a look at the spread of Christianity, it's spread all around the planet. So no one country can say, well, our country is actually fully Christian. For example, you have a look at my country, Australia, all religious denominations are represented, and the Constitution very clearly states equality for all religious groups. Doesn't matter what color of our skin, what religion we are, we all have equal rights. And so it doesn't really matter. It's not really relevant in my country what religion you happen to carry, because it's a deeply personal thing anyway. At the end of the day, I believe it is between me and the Maker in terms of how I answer for my actions. Whether I choose to worship privately or in a congregation or in meditation or not at all, I'm still answerable for my actions with the Creator. And I think that's the same for everyone. That's a very good question, because on the one hand, I cannot really be generalistic about the views of others, because that's a very general question you're asking. In terms of specifics, in terms of my own personal experience, I mix with some very interesting people in my life, and one of my very good friends, in fact, has lived in India longer than I have, around 28 years coming and going, and he is very much attached to the Sanatan school of Vedantic thinking. And while I've studied Vedantism and the writings of people like Swami Vivekananda and Tulsidas of Hathras and Mirabai, Tukaram, Paltu, and also Muslim saints like, for example, Bulleh Shah and so on. So when we talk about philosophy and religious values, the West does not seem to carry as much weight in one's religious values. And so in my view, most foreigners don't really understand the mix of what's going on in India. And so when we talk about, or when we refer to some political comment made by some prime minister, for example, in Italy or elsewhere, those are throwaway lines that are often thrown away by politicians to garner votes or to segregate opinions, divide and rule mentality. And so I really don't take that kind of throwaway comment very seriously at all. I think in my experience, most people I've ever met, the vast majority are peace-loving people. And it doesn't matter what religion we are. We all want peace, security, safety, and wealth for our families and for our lifestyles and so on. So we're all pretty much motivated the same way as human beings. So the choice of religion, I think, doesn't really matter unless it impacts in a negative way on someone else. And if we talk about the negative impacts of people who behave in the name of religion, every religion is guilty of such people. There are minorities and extremists in every religion. And so I think it's very unfair to paint any one particular religion with tar and feathers simply because the media is choosing to target those negative actions. For example, if we have a look at some of the negative media coming out with regarding the Muslim population, I think it's very unfair. I know many, many people who are very sincere, very lovely, very religious, and do not want to cause harm to anybody. And so if we have a handful of people who in the name of religion misbehave and cause harm on others, that blowback can be thrown back on the community, but often this is taken advantage of by the political classes who wish to divide and rule and garner votes and so on. And that's pretty much everywhere around the world, not just India. I think this conversation could certainly expand in several tangents in terms of the reasons why, the wherefore, or the economics, and so on, and even the politics, even the corruption, and so unfortunately, South Asian countries have attracted a lot of criticism regarding the lack of curtailing of corruption. And so it is endemic all throughout the region to a greater or lesser degree. And so that attracts a lot of criticism as well. What can we do? I mean, the laws are there, and if they're being disrespected by the people and not obeyed by the people and not adhered to, we can't blame the politicians, we have to look at it ourselves. In a philosophical sense, yes. But you see, we must remember that the politicians and the senior bureaucrats are often given to making popular statements in order to, if you like, greenwash the event. And I'm a little bit cynical when people publicly pronounce such things. My cynicism is based on the fact that it's very easy to engage the mouth. And so, unfortunately, and this is a worldwide issue, it's not just focused on India, but worldwide, you've got the politicians that strut the stage and say all sorts of nice, warm, fuzzy stuff, but don't follow it through with their actions. And so, again, it comes down to how we individually live our lives, because even how we live our lives dictates how we vote and our voting patterns. And if we're voting for idiots that are strutting the stage, then all we're going to get is an idiotic response. And so if we're voting for good, noble people who are doing the right thing all the way through to the core, then we're going to get a better outcome. Now, it's quite a common refrain in our society worldwide. Well, what choice do we have? It's either A or B. Well, we don't have to vote for A or B, actually. You know? And so I think the political arena is taken up by a whole lot of people grandstanding. There are good people amongst them, there's no doubt. But the majority in their groups shout them down and marginalize them, or their opposition then simply demonizes them. And so the voice of reason and the voice of truth is often shouted out by the majority of youth. And this is a feature worldwide. So when we talk about India taking over the G20 as the president of the organization for a period of time, yes, it's very nice to quote some of the Vedantic principles. But in my view, and maybe it's a cynical view, platitudes are not enough. Real intention, real leadership, and true noble behavior is what matters to me. And so, look, even in my former avatar some 25 years ago, several political parties approached me to join them. And I was president of Australia's largest student union at that time, with around 430,000 members. And so the political parties approached me to, I see later, in fact, even at that time they approached me, I realized that they wanted me out of student politics because we were actually rocking the boat, and sidelined me into a political party. And they said, oh, but we need smart young people like you to influence our polity and so on. And I said, look, if I was to join your party, this is an endorsement by me of your policy. And the reason why I've never voted for you, nor will I join you, is because there are several policies that I just simply don't agree with. And right now, my responsibility is with the students whom have elected me, and I'm dispensing with that duty. If in the future I ever decide to go into politics, I'm of the opinion that I'll probably form my own party, If that's the case and you like the policies that I'm representing, you're welcome to join me. So on that note, I turned away 4 opportunities to be Australia's youngest senator. And that was because, on a philosophical basis, walking the talk, not just simply following the crowd. I must say that I have had some extraordinarily beautiful experiences in this country, and some of the cultural values are really very sweet. We cannot deny the beauty and the meaning of such things like such activities and festivals like the High Views, when the sisters come and tie the Rakhi around the brothers, and so on. There's many festivals which actually have a far deeper meaning and are really very beautiful and add colour and loveliness to the society. One of the things I found in India was the very strong family values, and that's very endearing. Meeting people that not only talk about their brothers who are from the same mother and father, but their brothers maybe 5 cousins removed, and they're still brothers, and they still embrace each other like they saw each other just yesterday, and so on. And so that family value system is what really gives the tight knit to the community, and it's really very lovely. Overseas, people are so much more focused on developing careers and building up their assets in their home and living in a humdrum existence that some of those, many people actually lose that family value and that family network. And so that's one of the lovely things about this country, is the family values. Another of which I really admire is the almost mere fanaticism towards cricket. And being an Australian, and we are sort of like regarded like a nemesis in some ways to the Indian cricket team. This is very warming, and I've got great respect and admiration for the work. At the end of the day, it's about hard work and achievement. And so I don't think that we should secularize this by talking about, oh, this religion is improving in that department and that religion is dominant in this department. Because if we just have a look at the demographics, around 80% of the population is Hindu anyway, but at the end of the day, these sports people strive, they work hard. And so the selectors are actually spoilt for choice. I think that the selectors here in India could easily choose 2 or 3 A-class teams to tour the world, and each of them would be competent to defeat the best of the best at any time. So I think the selectors are spoiled for choice in this regard. And well, that's hardly surprising, since the population of India is so huge. There's got to be really great people amongst them as well. It's natural, the statistics are in that favour. So on the other hand, perhaps I can proudly say, well, Australia being such a small nation in comparison with the total population of the National Capital Territory of India, around 26 million people, or 2.6 crore, we're not doing too badly as a nation to fight it out and tough it out with much stronger countries who are much better funded than Australia. The BCCI has the greatest funding pot of all the cricket nations, and also has the biggest pool to choose from. So for the little guy, the Australian, to put his dukes up and hang on and fight, this shows the tenacity of our nation and our sport people, but it's all about dedication and training. The bottom line is dedication and training. People like Muhammad Shami and others, hats off to them. They have worked really hard to get where they are, and so they deserve all the felicitations. When I'm talking about some of the qualities and blessings of this country, one of the big things that struck me, and it has always remained with me, is that, for example, I'm a purely vegetarian person for more than 45 years, Shuddha Shakahari. And in my country, when I embarked on that journey, I was in my teens. And I was criticized roundly by everybody. No one understood why. And it wasn't for any religious reasons. It was actually for health reasons that I started that exploration. And so when I'm 16, 17, I start modifying my diet away from non-veg. And so by the time I was 20, I was fully vegetarian. And by then, because I'd studied so many different philosophies and faiths, I started to develop some consciousness on the philosophy supporting my decision, which was basically and primarily focused on improving and making great health. But then there was a philosophical backdrop that developed as well. Now, when I came to India, wherever I go, there's no difficulty in explaining Main Shukshakahari hai. I only take purely vegetarian food, no under, no moga, this and that and so on. And no one is critical of that decision. In fact, quite the reverse. People are very respectful that you take that path. And people express surprise. Oh, but you're a Videshi, you're a foreigner. This is very unusual. Well, in fact, that's correct. It is unusual for foreigners to be strictly vegetarian. And my diet is actually moving mostly into the vegan area, where I take very little milk products, or I don't take honey, for example, and so on. So in that sense, living in India has been very easy for me because the cuisine is based principally on vegetarian diet. And those that take non-veg have those dishes prepared separately. And so in that sense, it's been very easy for me to move in every religious circle, even amongst, if you like, the very dyed-in-the-wool Muslims that do take non-veg. They're still very respectful of the position I take, and always preparing the food separately, veg in one pot and prepared separately to the non-veg prepared in a different part of the kitchen, different implements and so on. So in that respect, I've been very comfortable in this country over the last 20, 25 years, able to follow my heart when it comes to diet and not have to make excuses for the position I've taken. It's readily accepted and respected. And this is another very lovely thing I wanted to mention about India. I must confess, Anas, that in fact one of my most favorite actors is Amir Khan. So he is indeed one of my favorite actors amongst the male actors. And amongst the females, I might say, and this is, if you like, a little bit of a personal choice, when Deepika Padukone played the role in Padmavat, she was just absolutely stunning. And interestingly enough, Padmavat resonates right across Hindu India, but the original book was written by Muhammad Jaisi, a Muslim. And in fact, he wrote around 500 years ago, during the time that his contemporaries were people like Guru Nanak and Kabir and so on. And so he wrote about and I've read the Padmavat, the translations, and he wrote very beautifully about the inner mystic journey. And Padmavati was in fact the representation of the soul. And so the whole story, in fact, everything about Padmavati is explained in the very last canto of the book. In the very last canto, he states very clearly, each of these characters has the mystical experience, it has a mystical interpretation which is within. And so I found that very interesting, but he had couched the entire story of the mystic journey within in a Hindu context. And that's a very nice point, which is often missed by the public in general. They've not done their homework on their own history and culture. India is very blessed to have a long line of notable mystics all throughout history. And it doesn't matter which genre of religion they come from. I have had the pleasure of collecting an enormous library of mystical literature over the years, covering everyone from Palju to Mirabai, Tukaram, Tulsidas of Hathras, Sheikh Farid, Bulleh Shah. There's so many marvelous mystics attributed to India, including the translations of Kabir, of Guru Nanak. The list goes on. And so India is spoilt for choice when it comes to mystic literature and the depth of mystic understanding. Having said that, one mystic famously quoted when he was asked, why is it that so many mystics seem to have been born in this part of the world? He replied, the saints come where they're needed the most.